Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Chantecaille Fall Collection. This is the Cheetah collection. We'll talk more about this when we're looking at the demos, but this collection, the entire collection was gifted to me by Chantecaille, so thank you very much. And we're going to start off with swatches. We're going to start off with the eye trio here, and let me show you the packaging. So one of the things that is different about this palette versus previous trios, their previous trios, you can see the packaging was a bit longer. The shadows inside are obviously different. The elephant palette here, this was actually, it featured their single shadows, and it was a palette where you could remove them and refill them. So we had a space for a brush. I actually took out the shades that it came in and put in my own singles from them. But you can see that the old palette there was thinner. And the big thing that I didn't love is the fact that the actual picture here was just kind of pasted on. Whereas now this is part of the palette, just like in their little quads and so forth. So we do have the same type of packaging that we would get in the quads, except it's a trio. Now, I do want to note that mine did come broken. And, you know, my palette, it came broken, the first shade. And so I let them know, and they did send me another one right away. So I did get, you know, a new one. However, it also had a broken shade. So I would definitely encourage you, if you are interested in the palette, to go in store. It is available at Nordstrom and Blue Mercury at this point, and it will be coming to other retailers. So you can see that this palette does not feature removable shades, and we don't have room for a brush, which I'm totally cool with. And our shadow size is different from the previous trios. And actually, I prefer this formula shadows versus those that came in the Elephant Trio or their singles. Their singles shadows, they're a little bit drier. They're very, very light, and it's harder to get pigmentation. So this is going to be more similar to the shades that you would find in the eyeshadow quads that they feature. So we'll be taking a look at those. So let's go ahead and swatch our three shades here. And we start off with a shimmery brown shade here. And see, we've got enough pigment there. So this is described as a pearly almond with a creamy iridescent finish. To me, it's a soft, warm brown, kind of like the coat of a baby fawn. So then we move on to a matte shade, and this is described as a matte dough brown. I really like this brown here. This one you can see is going to be a little cooler than the shimmery shade. Whereas in the pan, the shimmery shade looks like it's going to be cooler. But when you actually swatch them, you can see that this is going to be warm. This one is going to be more of a neutral leaning cool matte brown. And the texture of this is silky with a little bit of that putty like texture in there. So it has some grip. And then we have a matte, this is described as a creamy vanilla. And I think it's more of a light beige. So it's definitely going to be yellow based. And yeah, to me, if you want to describe it as a creamy vanilla, I'm not thinking fresh vanilla ice cream. I'm thinking that like more yellow vanilla that you get from like some brands that, you know, usually have some artificial flavors in there. So to me, this is more of a warm beige. So those are the three shades. I have to say, I really love the two brown shades. This one, I would prefer to see something a little bit cooler in tone. So let's go ahead and move on to the eye swatches, the demos and details, and talk a little bit more about these shadows before we move on to lip veils. And we also have some comparisons to look at as well. Now, according to Chantecaille, this eye trio is a trio of silky, soft, earthy eyeshadows and pearl and matte finishes. The hues were inspired by the grassy plains where cheetahs thrive. And we have 2.5 grams of product with a 2-year shelf life. It's made in Italy. It's vegan and gluten-free. And they are this is going to be one of their philanthropy products. Actually, everything in this collection is a philanthropy item, which means that funds raised from the sales of the Cheetah collection will support the Cheetah Conservation Fund in their efforts to stop the illegal trade of cheetah cubs in the Horn of Africa and provide 24/7 medical care to rescued cubs. Now, as we're looking at these swatches, you can see that all of the shades go on very easily. They're very easy to blend out, and they, they give you a really soft finish in a good way. It's a soft, easy look. So I think this trio in general is really great for an easy, natural, like daily look. And that's really, in my opinion, what Chantecaille does best, are those like everyday natural looks. And so for these, I have to say, I do actually like the formulas for all of these shadows. The mattes, again, as I mentioned, they are a silky, yet still like creamy with a little bit of that putty texture that gives it a little grip on the eyelid. So it's not really going anywhere. It doesn't feel like, sometimes you have a powder shadow and you can feel some of the particles are gonna, you can feel them drifting when you're applying. That doesn't happen with these matte shades. I do really like those. Now, I feel since the shimmery shade is shattered, I perhaps am not getting exactly the same texture as I would get if it were a nice flat pan, because I do have some broken up pieces in there. So it's easier for me to get a little fallout from that shade. But this does feel like it's very finely milled. But if you're going to get fallout from any of these shades, that would probably be it. Now, as for the first shimmery shade, as I mentioned, it's like a warm, soft brown. There's like a touch of, like rose kind of mixed in there. And the shimmer in there is actually silver and gold. So you've got some hues of both. What I like about this trio is that we have some warmer shades and we have some cooler shades. But what it's missing is a range in tone or depth. So all of these shades are pretty much a light medium hue. So, it's a little bit harder to develop depth in your eye look. And, I feel like you're going to kind of create the same look every time with this trio, which is fine if you're using it every day. But I also think that on deeper skin tones, these shades may not really show up very much. So I wish that they had come out with perhaps like a light and a dark trio, or, maybe even just a quad instead, and they had like something deeper in there. But I feel like it's very, I hesitate to use the word or the phrase one note, but it's kind of in that family, just because, again, our depth of shades is all the same, even though we do have those warmer and cooler tones in there. And I have to say, I do actually really like the brown shades in here. It's just that I wish there were one or two more shades to add a little something more to those particular ones, complement them a little more. So let's go ahead and take a look at some comparisons before we move on to the lip veils. So I wanted to start off with the more recent trios from Chantecaille. And I also wanted to show you the sizing comparison. The actual palette itself is the same size, same shape. I'm sure this is the same base, but we don't have anything attached. Like, my issue with these palettes was just that it's really hard to keep them like flat in a drawer just because of the turtle on top. So, I think this is, it's an improvement. And then this here is the Sea Turtle eyeshadow trio in the Cool trio. And let's take a look at this shade here. We're going to put that vertically so you can kind of see. And this is like a satin shade that's kind of in between those two in the trio. The other shades here don't really go at all with that, but let's take a look at the warm palette. And I wanted to look at this shade here for a comparison with the vanilla. You can see this is satin. This is actually going to be a little bit more gold, while the one in the new trio is a little bit peachier in hue, but they both have kind of that warmer yellow base. And then I want to take a look at some of the Chantecaille quads. So this is the Cougar Eye Quartet. So that's this one here. This one was limited edition not that long ago. We're going to go ahead and swatch this whole quad. And we're starting off here with this vanilla shade here. You can see that those are essentially the same shade. Then we have this lighter, more of like a soft rosy taupe. It's lighter and a little bit cooler in tone than this shimmery shade. And this is going to be more of a satin finish. So a little different, but it does have a similar hue to it. Then we have this rich satin shade here, which you know, it's more of a metallic satin, and this is going to be a reddish brown. So it's not going to match up with the other one, but I have to say that like that first shade here is, I think they might be the same. So, and then we have a deep charcoal gray. So although the trio and the palette don't have exactly the same shades, you can, if you have this one, you can create very similar looks, but you get a little bit more depth because you do have some deeper hues in this Cougar palette. Then I want to take a look at this Wild Meadows palette, and we're going to take a look at the two down here at the bottom. And let's go ahead, we'll put them right here. You can see this is going to be lighter and more, it's like a lighter, not quite a taupe, but kind of like a rosy taupe. And then we have this matte brown, which is a little bit more red, a little warmer than the one in the trio, but they're very close. So I would say that they're pretty similar. And then this is the cool Hummingbird Quartet. And I wanted to take a look at this taupe, which is one of my favorites. You can see it's going to be satin. This is going to be a little bit cooler. We got a bit more gray in there. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what that one looked like. And just one more set of comparisons here. This is the Giraffe Eye Quartet. And I want to take a look at, well, I want to take a look at this brown here, but let's take a look at the one here on the bottom as well. Although that one is going to be more red. So I'll put that here. And here's the deeper, richer, redder one on the bottom. This matte though is very, very similar to the new matte. Let me swatch those right next to each other. So here is the new matte from the trio. You can see it's going to be a little bit lighter and cooler, but they're close. So those are some eyeshadow comparisons. Let's go ahead and move on to the lip veils. So Chantecaille has released 3 lip veils in this collection. Again, these are philanthropy items as well. And you can see these are the color combinations. So we have kind of the same family of colors. They're actually, I think they kind of match up with the trio a bit. But just so you know, this does not mean, you know, this isn't our lightest shade. This is actually our deepest shade. Our lightest shade is the one in the middle. This one's more medium tone. So we're going to look at each of those. And if you're not familiar with the lip veil formula, originally the lip veils were always in this square packaging, and the lip cheeks used to always come in like a round tube. But, you know, with in the last few years, their collections, they've been doing the lip cheeks in this packaging as well. So this is your square, rectangular packaging with the magnetic closure. Lip veils are a little bit thinner than a lip cheek. They, you know, it's kind of like a thinner layer of pigment, very comfortable, still a bit of a balmy texture, but they don't have that thicker shine layer to them. And the part that I love best about them is they are fragrance free. So personally, between lip cheeks and lip veils, I prefer the lip veils because of the fragrance issue. So let's start off with Wild Senna. And this is going to be our first shade. We're going to do these vertically so we can put comparisons across horizontally. So this is Wild Senna, and you can see that this is kind of a deep peachy rusty shade. So you have a little bit of that like rusty red in the hue, but it's mixed mostly with peach. So then we move on to Desert Lily, which is my personal favorite. It's the one on my lips right now. And this is going to be your pinker hue. This is going to be a soft rose. And just like all of the shades in this collection, we do have a little warmth in this. This is pretty neutral, but it's going to be a soft neutral pink. And then our last shade is Acacia. And we actually have another lip veil called Acacia from a previous collection. So we'll take a look at that. But you can see that this is going to be a deeper shade. This has a bit of brick red mixed with a cooler maroon to it. So this one will, if you do one layer, you see a bit more of that warmth, but when you pile it up, it actually looks like a cooler tone, more of a soft brick red in that tone. So these are the 3. Let's take a look at the lip swatches and talk a little bit about these. According to Chantecaille, the lip veils are a revolutionary light gliding lipstick that leaves a luminous veil of pure hydrating color on lips, enriched with Fair Wild standard certified organic baobab oil. And again, we have 3 shades here. These are philanthropy items, which means that funds from these items are going to go to the Cheetah Conservation Fund that we mentioned before. As for product details, we have 2.5 grams of product in each of these with an 18-month shelf life. They're vegan and gluten-free. As I mentioned, these are also fragrance-free. And, you know, they're also, by the way, all of the Chantecaille products here are PETA approved as well. So just some things to note. I personally love the lip veils. They are my favorite lip product from Chantecaille. They give you that nice thin layer of color. You still have like slip and glide on your lips, but it's going to be much thinner than the lip cheeks. I feel like these, you know, certain shades of these, you definitely get more pigmentation out of these than the lip cheeks that will hang around on your lips as well. So if you're looking for something pigmented, some of the more pigmented shades of the lip veil, you actually get longer wear time from these because they will stain the lips, whereas that thicker, shiny layer in the lip cheeks, kind of, you know, the pigmentation kind of wears away a little sooner with that in comparison to the lip veils. So I get an extra hour, sometimes 2 hours with the deeper shades of the lip veils for wear before I want to reapply. So the only thing is, you know, that's in reference to the stain. As for, you know, the texture on your lips, I'd say they're about the same. You're looking at 3 to 4 hours before you kind of lose the texture of having a balmy product on your lips. So just like the trio here, they did do a nice job of having some different tones of color, as in like cool and warm. So out of these, definitely the Senna shade here is going to be our warmest. The Desert Lily is more neutral, and our coolest would be the Acacia. So I also like how we do have lighter and deeper shades in the lip veils. So let's move on to a few comparisons. I want to start off with the other lip veil in Acacia. So I don't remember which collection this was in, but this is also a lip veil in the shade Acacia. So let's see if the tones actually match up. And I would say they do. However, I do think that the new one actually gets a little bit more pigmented than this one does. This one actually looks a little bit more pink, a little softer in color. But they're definitely the same hue. That could just be like a batch difference. Obviously, it's been years. So it is the same color. Now, I think this one here, Plumeria, might have been from that same collection. This is going to be cooler than the Desert Lily. You can see this is going to be a cool tone rose. And then another one I want to take a look at. This is Tamarind. And this is going to be like a deeper brown shade. Let's just put this down here. You've got the depth here that you have with the Acacia shade, but you can see this is brown with a little bit of, you know, a rosy hue to it. So this is neutral. It leans, I would say it leans a little warm, but it's pretty much neutral. From the Butterfly collection, this is the shade Hyssop, which is going to be it's a little bit cooler. We got a little bit more purple in this, but you can see it is going to be a similar shade. Now you can see looking at this that this looks glossier and shinier. That's because this one here is a lip cheek instead of a lip veil. So you can see the difference right off the bat. Another lip cheek, this one was from the Hummingbird collection. This is the shade Honeysuckle. And let's go ahead and put this here. This is kind of like a peachy pink. And I would say it's in between the Wild Senna and the Desert Lily. Just a few more lip veils I wanted to look at, and these are from the permanent line, the regular line. This is the shade Baobab, and let's see how this one compares. This is kind of in between Desert Lily and Acacia, but it's going to be a bit warmer than either of them. But you can see it's kind of a warm, sort of deep tea rose. Then we have the lip veil in Rock Rose, and this is going to be a deeper shade, and it is a vibrant, more pinkish berry shade. This is going to be cooler in tone. We also have a lip veil in Tamboti, which, let's put this one up here. This is going to be more of your soft nude. You can see it actually goes well with the Wild Senna, but there's more brown in Tamboti, and we have more peach in the Wild Senna. And then the last one I wanted to look at is a lip cheek from the regular line. This is how all the lip cheeks used to be. But this is the shade Sorry Rose. And you can see this is very, very close to Wild Senna. You can, again, see kind of that glossy shine there. Color-wise, there's maybe a touch more of a brown hue in the base, but it's pretty indetectable on the lips, I would say. So very, very similar shade there. So I hope these were helpful. Overall, for my thoughts on the Cheetah collection, I think the trio is actually a really nice trio for daily looks. You know, if you're looking to pick up like the same palette every day for a nice, sophisticated, easy look for work, I think this is a really great trio for that. However, I would definitely encourage you to purchase it in person, in store, just so you don't deal with any breakage issues like I did. So that I think is a great trio for that. As for the lip veils, I'm very happy they included lip veils instead of lip cheeks this time. I love these and I feel like they've been kind of neglected a lot. My favorite is the Desert Lily. I think all the shades are beautiful, but if you do have an extensive Chantecaille collection, you probably have something similar to all of these shades already. But overall, I think it's a great collection. In summation, I would say it's a nice daily wear collection from Chantecaille. It kind of goes back to the things that they do really well. In my opinion, there were a few things they could improve upon, such as depth of colors in the trio and so forth, maybe having a second trio or turning it into a quad or a quint. But overall, I think it's a nice, safe collection from Chantecaille. And again, it makes it really easy to choose what you're going to do. You get a really nice, easy, natural look with all of the items from this collection. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the collection, whether you've tried anything or you're considering picking something up. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful day.